How could a forgotten, starving boy, born into a minor, abandoned clan on the Mongolian steppe, rise to command the largest continuous land empire the world has ever witnessed, forging a path of conquest that spanned from the Pacific to the gates of Vienna? We are about to begin the extraordinary, terrifying, and meticulously organized journey of Temüjin, the man whose will was forged in iron and who ultimately became Chinggis Khan, the universal ruler. His story is not just a chronicle of war, but a masterclass in conquest, driven by deep, unforgotten personal trauma and a relentless, calculating strategic ambition that few historical figures have ever matched. To truly comprehend the seismic force that was Chinggis Khan, we must first immerse ourselves completely in the brutal, unforgiving crucible of the 12th century Eurasian steppe. This was a vast, utterly unforgiving expanse, defined by perpetual motion, extreme climate, from blistering summers to devastating zoods, winter storms, and unrelenting tribal violence. It was ruled by powerful Turkic and Mongolic tribes, the Tartars, Merkits, Khwarezmians, and Naimans, all of whom were locked in endless, savage cycles of raiding, vendetta, and fragile temporary alliance. In this world, existence demanded more than just physical strength. Survival required total strategic cunning, where a man's honor and economic worth were constantly, ruthlessly tested by every rival and every environmental challenge. It was a world where self-reliance was the supreme law, and the failure of a leader meant immediate abandonment, a fact Temüjin learned with devastating clarity. Temüjin was born around 1162 near the sacred Burkhan Haldun mountain. His name, derived from a captured Tartar chief, meant of iron, an incredibly prophetic start, suggesting durability and unbreakable will. Yet, any potential childhood privilege was instantly revoked. At the age of 9, his father, Yesigey, a minor chief, was ambushed and poisoned by the very Tartars whose chief shared his son's name. The political consequences were swift and catastrophic. His own clan, seeing no future strength or immediate benefit in a widow, Hoelin, and her young children, abandoned them immediately to the wilderness. The future conqueror was left utterly destitute, forced to scavenge for roots, fish, and small game just to stay alive. This profound betrayal, documented in the secret history of the Mongols, taught Temüjin the ultimate political lesson. Powerlessness guarantees abandonment, and absolute loyalty must be earned through strength, never inherited through blood. It was a wound that would later define his ruthless commitment to those who remained loyal to him and his uncompromising vengeance against those who broke faith. His teenage years brought deeper agony that reinforced this lesson of survival and betrayal. He was captured and enslaved by the Merkits, his family's old rivals, and forced to wear the heavy wooden yoke of subjugation, a symbol of absolute dehumanization. But his legendary escape in the darkness, an act of sheer will, silent movement, and decisive action, became his first true demonstration of defiant leadership, proving he would neither submit to chains nor acknowledge his enemy's authority. His resilience and capacity for escape established his early reputation as someone blessed by Tengri and thus destined for greatness. The chronicle, known as the Secret History of the Mongols, confirms the chilling strategic severity of his character. During a childhood dispute over a hunting prize, Temüjin coldly murdered his half-brother, Bektir. This was a calculated act that confirmed his belief. Any rival, even kin, must be permanently eliminated if they pose a long-term threat to the stability and unity he was determined to impose. This established the dark prerequisite for his future success: ruthlessness as a tool of ultimate order. Temüjin's eventual rise was built on a revolutionary principle that deliberately undercut the existing aristocratic order: meritocracy. While his charismatic rival Jamuka championed the old system based on aristocratic bloodlines, Temüjin strategically shattered that entitlement. His followers, or noker, companions, were bound to him not by charisma, but by his unwavering commitment to rewarding skill and loyalty alone. A capable shepherd could suddenly become a Noyon, commander. Competence would always supersede birthright every time, ensuring the most talented men reached the top of his growing organization. This radical vision fundamentally broke the old tribal structures, guaranteeing him a fighting force utterly devoted not to a clan, but to his personal mandate. His path to supremacy required the systematic elimination of the old fragmented order. First, he secured key alliances, reaffirming his loyalty to his father's sworn brother, Togrul Khan of the Khwarezmians, and initially aligning with Jamuka. Then came the campaigns of annihilation that defined his ruthlessness and established his terrifying legend. Against the Merkits 1190s, he pursued his lifelong grudge against his former enslavers, utterly destroying and scattering their remnants, establishing the terrifying precedent that retribution for betrayal would be absolute. Against the Tartars, 1202, the tribe responsible for his father's death, he executed a brutal scorched earth policy, famously ordering the removal of all males taller than the axle of a cart, a calculated action to ensure there could be no future vengeance or resurgence from the defeated tribe, eliminating a perpetual source of conflict. The final agonizing confrontation was his sworn brother, Jamuka, who remained the champion of the old fragmented tribal system and thus Temüjin's greatest ideological threat. After Jamuka was decisively defeated and betrayed by his own chiefs, he submitted to Temüjin. In a final, complex gesture, Chinggis Khan granted Jamuka a clean, noble death, honoring their profound brotherhood, while simultaneously eliminating the last strategic obstacle to total unity. By 1206, the chaotic, warring tribes of the steppe were unified under a single iron banner. At the Great Assembly, the Hurultai, Temüjin was formally proclaimed Chinggis Khan, the universal ruler. The transformation was complete. The outcast now stood as the divinely ordained monarch. He discarded his human name and claimed his mandate directly from Tengri, the eternal blue sky, transforming his personal ambition into a mandatory cosmic order to conquer all lands under heaven. The era of the fragmented steppe was over, and the hungry, unified gaze of the Mongol Empire was fixed on the settled civilizations of the world. But how did this nomadic army, accustomed only to raiding yurts, rapidly conquer the world's greatest stone fortresses and vast ancient empires? The answer lies in the revolutionary military machine he meticulously designed. With unity achieved, Chinggis Khan unleashed a military force unlike any seen before. It was not merely a large force, but a revolutionary, highly efficient machine built for unprecedented speed, disciplined coordination, and terror. The organizational structure was a stroke of genius, the decimal system. The army was rigorously structured into units of 10 Arban, 100 Jagun, 1,000 Minghan, and the crucial 10,000-man unit, the Tumen. This rigid, non-tribal hierarchy was the key to unity. It forced men from rival lineages to fight as brothers, enforcing a singular, uncompromising allegiance to the Khan. Discipline was absolute. Failure in battle or retreat without command resulted in the execution of the entire unit's officers, creating an unparalleled level of battlefield compliance and ruthlessness. This structure meant that if a Tumen commander failed, the Khan was informed instantly via the Yam's relay system, and execution could be swift, enforcing total accountability. Mobility was the ultimate weapon, a strategic advantage that no other medieval power could counter. Each Mongol warrior rode several horses, up to 4 or 5, allowing them to cover distances up to 60 miles per day without exhausting a single animal. They traveled light, sustaining themselves on felt tents, minimal leather armor, dried rations, and mare's milk, kumis. This profound self-sufficiency eliminated the need for slow, vulnerable baggage trains, allowing them to appear unexpectedly, often months before an enemy even anticipated their existence. This element of surprise was psychologically and tactically paralyzing, frequently convincing the enemy that the Mongol army possessed impossible speed, contributing significantly to pre-battle demoralization. The Mongol arsenal centered on devastating mounted archery, a skill honed from childhood on the steppe. The primary weapon was the composite bow. Constructed meticulously from laminated horn, wood, and sinew, this technologically advanced bow possessed a far superior draw weight and range, up to 350 meters, compared to European and Chinese bows. This allowed them to engage the enemy from beyond the effective range of many medieval weapons. The Mongol light cavalry would systematically sow chaos with continuous whistling volleys of arrows before the disciplined charge of the heavy cavalry, armed with lances, axes, and curved sabers, delivered the final crushing blow. The sheer volume of fire and the speed of their maneuvers made traditional infantry and heavy cavalry formations obsolete. The use of specialized arrows, including armor-piercing heads and whistling heads for signaling, further enhanced their tactical versatility. Mongol tactics were defined by the brilliant fusion of speed and cunning, often preying on the enemy's slow, predictable military doctrines. Their most infamous maneuver was the feigned retreat. Forces would engage, then abruptly turn and flee, often shouting in mock panic. This tactic successfully lured heavy, slow enemy cavalry into a disordered, exhausted pursuit, thinking the battle was won. At the opportune moment, the Mongols would suddenly turn, form ranks, and unleash a devastating close-range barrage of arrows onto their disorganized foe, trapping them in a deadly hail. This maneuver required perfect timing, discipline, and horsemanship, all hallmarks of the Mongol machine. Furthermore, they mastered psychological warfare, using terror as a force multiplier. Stories of massacres were deliberately amplified and allowed to travel ahead of the advancing army, prompting cities to surrender without a fight, thus conserving Mongol manpower for the next target. Maintaining this vast mobile force required the crucial yams or postal relay system. Utilizing thousands of well-stocked way stations and swift riders, orders, intelligence, and even ambassadors could travel across the colossal empire faster than any competing state. This communication network was a non-military logistical innovation that guaranteed the Great Khan could maintain centralized tactical control and coordinate simultaneous attacks across multiple fronts thousands of miles apart, making their army feel omnipresent and impossible to defeat. It also served as the spine of imperial administration, allowing for rapid movement of officials, taxation records, and commercial goods. Chinggis Khan's subsequent invasions were decisive, total confrontations that permanently reshaped the geopolitical map, targeting empires that held vast wealth and advanced technology, essential resources for maintaining a unified nomadic army. The first was the campaign against the Xixia, Western Xia dynasty. Though smaller than the powerful Jin, the Xixia held vital trade routes and agricultural wealth. Chinggis Khan used a strategy of deliberate river diversion and flooding to force their submission, securing a massive tribute and, more importantly, a crucial non-aggression pact that protected his flank during the bigger campaign to the east. The Xixia would, however, prove treacherous, leading to Chinggis Khan's final, fatal campaign. Number 1. The destruction of the Jin dynasty, 1211 to 1215. The Jin dynasty in northern China, with its immense population, wealth, and advanced siege technology, represented the largest and most dangerous immediate threat. Chinggis Khan launched a full invasion in 1211. His early victories were won in the field, but the real challenge were the fortified cities. The pivotal moment came with the siege and sack of Zhongdu, modern Beijing, in 1215. Facing advanced stone fortifications, the Mongols were forced to evolve rapidly from cavalry raiders to masters of siegecraft. They aggressively incorporated captured Chinese and Jurchen engineers and intellectuals, quickly learning sophisticated siege warfare, including the construction and use of massive catapults, trebuchets, and, crucially, captured gunpowder weapons, such as fire lances and early bombs.
The fall of Zhongdu was a brutal lesson in the cost of resistance and provided the Mongols with the technical skills they would use to conquer the rest of Eurasia, a perfect example of adapting technology from the conquered to further the conquest. The sheer scale of the plunder and the administrative experience gained here were essential for the empire's next phase. Number 2, the annihilation of the Khwarezmian Empire, 1219 to 1221. This was the single greatest turning point in the West and a terrifying display of psychological terror, marking the point where the Mongols truly became a global menace. The Khwarezmian Empire, a vast and powerful Muslim state stretching across Central Asia and Persia, was ruled by Shah Muhammad II. In a devastating diplomatic blunder in 1218, the Shah executed Mongol envoys and merchants at the city of Otran. Chinggis Khan viewed this not just as a political affront, but as an insult against the divine mandate of Tengri, launching a devastating response with an army estimated over 100,000 elite troops crossing the Tian Shan Mountains in a masterful tactical feat. The Mongols used brilliant flanking maneuvers and divided armies to overwhelm the Shah's less mobile forces. Famous cities fell in sequence. Otran was besieged and destroyed, with the governor executed by having molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. Bukhara and Samarkand, the glittering jewels of Central Asia, were utterly laid waste. Chinggis Khan famously ascended the minbar of the main mosque in Bukhara and declared he was the scourge of God, sent to punish them for their arrogance. The relentless Mongol pursuit, led by generals Jeb and Subutai, drove Shah Muhammad to die in complete destitution on a small island in the Caspian Sea, a deliberate symbolic humiliation designed to strip his lineage of any political legitimacy. The speed and totality of the Khwarezmian collapse shattered the geopolitical order of the Islamic world, opening Persia and paving the way for future conquests into Russia and the Middle East. Chinggis Khan's genius extended far beyond the battlefield. He grasped that ruling a vast settled empire required a unified, stable framework of governance, not just perpetual nomadic brutality. His most enduring institutional legacy was the legal code known as the Yasa, or Great Law. The Yasa, initially unwritten decrees, later codified, was enforced with absolute severity and, crucially, applied uniformly across the entire vast empire, regardless of the subject's ethnic or cultural origin. This universal application of the law was truly revolutionary for the medieval world, which was accustomed to highly localized and fragmented legal systems. Key tenets of the Yasa were designed to define and stabilize the Mongol state: absolute loyalty and discipline, making betrayal of the Khan or failure within the Tumen a capital offense, thereby guaranteeing military and political stability. Zero tolerance for disorder, punishing even petty theft with death, a measure that drastically secured commerce and property, a key factor in securing the loyalty of international merchants and settled elites. Standardization of nomadic life and administrative practices, and the protection of resources through regulated hunting, ensuring long-term nomadic survival and sustainability. The Yasa was, in essence, a charter for a multi-ethnic, centralized military state, acting as the administrative backbone of the empire.
But the most surprising and strategically brilliant aspect of the Yasa was the absolute guarantee of religious tolerance. Priests, monks, rabbis, shamans, and religious figures of all faiths were exempt from taxation and corvée labor. This was pure political genius. By protecting all faiths, Chinggis Khan undercut the authority of any single religious leader to rally political resistance against Mongol rule, thereby protecting the state. He could thus utilize the crucial administrative and scholarly skills of educated Confucian, Muslim, or Nestorian Christian officials without requiring them to abandon their faith, efficiently integrating the conquered elite into his system. This period of unparalleled stability, protected commerce, and uniform law became known to historians as the Pax Mongolica, Mongol peace. For the first time in history, a single legal authority secured the entire vast length of the Silk Road. Travel and trade flourished as never before. The Venetian merchant Marco Polo was able to journey safely from Europe to Kublai Khan's court in Beijing, a testament to the security provided by Mongol law. Ideas, technologies, and culture flowed freely across Eurasia, facilitating the first true global interchange, though it also hastened the spread of disease, including the eventual Black Death, which devastated the populations on both ends of the continent. Chinggis Khan dedicated his remaining life to establishing this unified world order, which he believed was divinely ordained by Tengri. The sheer administrative logistics required a sophisticated council of officials and his sons to manage the immense burdens of governance and taxation across the rapidly expanding conquered lands. But even the universal ruler was mortal. In 1227, during his final campaign against the treacherous Xixia kingdom, Chinggis Khan died. The precise cause remains disputed, but in adherence to strict Mongol custom, the location of his burial was kept absolutely secret. Legends claim that all who witnessed the procession, including the thousands of soldiers escorting his body, were ultimately killed to ensure the secret was protected forever. His anonymous burial was a final, profound act of devotion to the steppe, ensuring his spirit could not be disturbed and that his sacred mission would endure.
Chinggis Khan's grand ambition was a perpetual unified empire, a mandate passed down by Tengri. Yet, the system of partitioning his domain among his 4 surviving sons, Jochi, Chagatai, Ogaday, and Tului, with the expectation of centralized rule under a single great Khan, proved to be the ultimate destabilizing source of its fragmentation. This principle of shared inheritance, the Ulus system, was a core nomadic tradition that tragically worked against imperial unity, leading to endless dynastic disputes after his death. His immediate successor was Ogaday Khan, chosen by the Hurultai in 1229. Ogaday proved to be an effective, stabilizing ruler who consolidated the gains, established the first permanent capital city of Karakoram on the steppe, and initiated the greatest Western campaign, aiming to complete the conquest of the known world. This massive invasion, led by Ogaday's nephew, Batu Khan, swept across Eastern Europe in what is historically known as the Invasion of the Rus. The Mongol armies, utilizing winter conditions to their tactical advantage, systematically crushed the fragmented Rus principalities, Ryazan, Vladimir, and Kiev. The brutal efficiency of the campaign established the Tartar yoke, a period where the Rus princes were forced into 2 centuries of Mongol overlordship and tribute. The invasion continued its push into Central Europe in 1241. The combined Polish and German forces were utterly decimated at the Battle of Legnica. Simultaneously, the main Hungarian army was crushed at the Battle of Mohi on the Sajo River. The sheer terror and success suggested that nothing could stop them. Europe seemed poised for total conquest, facing an existential threat, but fate intervened in the form of Mongol political custom. News of Ogaday's death in Karakoram in late 1241 triggered the mandatory Mongol withdrawal. All high-ranking commanders, including Batu Khan, had to return to the steppe for the election of a new great Khan. This sudden, politically mandated withdrawal, executed despite the commander's desire to continue the war, saved the Holy Roman Empire and Western Europe from almost certain invasion, a fact that profoundly shaped the next 5 centuries of European history. Following the deaths of Ogaday and subsequent short-lived successors, the unity established by Chinggis Khan fractured irreversibly, fueled by generational jealousy, competing political philosophies, and the immense logistical difficulty of controlling such a vast territory. The rivalry between the lines of Ogaday and Tului became insurmountable, culminating in open civil war. The final break came with the ascension of Kublai Khan, son of Tului, in 1260, following his victory in a costly civil war against his brother Erik Boki. Though Kublai was proclaimed Great Khan, the other descendants refused to recognize his authority, especially his adoption of settled Chinese political methods, including moving the capital from Karakoram to Khanbalik, Beijing. The empire permanently divided into 4 independent, often warring successor states: the Yuan dynasty, Kublai's line ruling China from Beijing, the Ilkhanate,
Hulagu's line, ruling Persia, which achieved massive destructive victories like the sack of Baghdad in 1258, ending the Islamic Golden Age, but was finally halted by the Egyptian Mamluks at the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, the first decisive Mongol defeat that proved the Mongols were not invincible. The Golden Horde, Jochi's line, controlling the vast western steppes in Russia, and the Chagatai Khanate, Central Asia. This fragmentation marked the end of the unified Mongol Empire and the beginning of the Khanate era. The Mongol Empire, a force built on movement and destruction, did not succumb to a single invasion. Rather, it underwent a slow two-century process of fragmentation and cultural assimilation, the insidious enemy of the nomadic ideal. As Mongol elites settled into their regional capitals, they began to adopt the traditions and religions of their conquered territories, fundamentally abandoning the Tengri-centric identity of the steppe that Chinggis Khan had used as the ultimate unifying force. The Ilkhanids converted to Islam, aligning with the dominant faith of Persia. The Yuan embraced Buddhism and Confucian administrative structures. Furthermore, constant internal wars between the Khanates, such as the bitter rivalry between the Golden Horde and the Ilkhanate, severely depleted military and financial resources. The original discipline and unrivaled mobility of the army eroded as elites grew dependent on the wealth and bureaucracy of settled life, replacing their horses and bows with luxurious silk robes and court politics. The Yuan dynasty was eventually driven out of China by the native Han Chinese Ming dynasty in 1368. The Ilkhanate dissolved into regional dynasties by the mid-14th century. The Golden Horde, weakened by internal dissent and the rise of Muscovy, was gradually defeated by the rising Russian state, collapsing fully by the end of the 15th century. The Chagatai Khanate fragmented and was eventually superseded by the conquests of the last great steppe conqueror, Tamerlane, who proudly claimed his own lineage and power from the legacy of Chinggis Khan. Chinggis Khan's life was an astonishing transformation from a hunted child to the universal ruler. His political genius, the Yasa, the meritocracy, and his revolutionary military machine built an empire that redefined the medieval world, connecting civilizations violently yet completely. His legacy is one of stark contradiction, a force of unparalleled destruction, yet the architect of the first truly global system of communication, law, and interchange. The Mongol Empire is gone, but the fundamental historical paths carved by Chinggis Khan across Eurasia, military, political, and cultural, remain visible to this day. If you are fascinated by the complex forces that shaped history, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the Yasa. This entire documentary is brought to life through captivating animation, making history engaging and entertaining. Stay tuned for our next video on the rise of the Ottoman Empire.